30-second spot still remains the bread and butter for radio stations and traditional radio media, and not just in South Africa but around the world. From an advertising perspective, it's very important because it helps with frequency, and that's one of the key measures as what we utilize to determine whether things have been successful or not. If you come to me and say, I'd like to buy one 30-second spot on your morning show, I'm going to tell you, well, let's see what we can do. Add a bit more money to your package, and let's try and increase the frequency, because that's how you're really going to get a return on investment. So in a tight economy, it's not as easy to get the advertising spend to enhance frequency, but if you want a campaign that works, frequency is going to be extremely important as you take out your 30-second promotion on a radio station. One of my biggest criticisms of 30-second commercials or spots is the fact that from a creative perspective they lack depth, and more often than not they just tend to fit into your 4-minute spot bracket. So standing out is something that most clients want to do, but it really comes through from the creative conception. The idea, 30 seconds, what we're going to put into that 30 seconds, and ultimately what's the objective? Is the objective to sell 20 bags of rice every half hour when the commercial flights, or do you need to sell one motor vehicle a month? I certainly think there's always going to be a role for the 30-second spot. But then again, most radio executives will tell you that the vast majority of radio revenue comes from 30-second commercials. So we're forecasting, and forecasting is always guesswork, but we're forecasting for at least the next 5 years that 30-second commercials will still generate in excess of 75 to 80% of revenue for radio stations. So radio stations will still be promoting that and designing their 60-minute clocks and their programming schedules around the fact that there needs to be spot brackets. And spot brackets need to be placed around top and bottom of the hour, specific areas when people are listening, because the last thing we want is to place spot brackets in an area when there's no audience, because the client's not going to see a return on investment. So certainly there is a good future for 30-second commercials, provided that the creative concept is there and that they're written and produced properly to get the attention of the audience. I remain unconvinced that a 45 or 60-second spot would generate a better return on investment than a 30-second commercial. Coming from the old school of traditional radio, shorter tends to be better. So as a presenter, if you can't say it within 30 seconds, then there's a problem. Some of the biggest mistakes that clients tend to make, they think that live reads can replace generic advertising. And whilst that may not necessarily be too far off the mark, a live read traditionally is a presenter reading a 30 or 45-second commercial, and the reason why it's charged at a premium is that the audience thinks, well, it's an endorsement from the presenter, and the fact that it stands out, it's not placed in the traditional 4-minute bracket. So a live read tends to happen before the bracket or around a feature or at a preferred spot in the 60-minute clock. We're noticing that many clients are asking for not just the traditional radio platform, but looking at what's happening on mobile and online. We are noticing that radio is a fantastic complementary platform for online, because once you have an online campaign, it will certainly be enhanced by what you're doing on air. So you may take out a generic campaign if you are renting properties at a development in the Northwest province. You may have the entire portfolio of properties online, but it would be supported on air. So you're driving the audience from an on-air perspective to go and interact with the product online. And we're seeing a lot more clients, especially over the last 24 months, looking at a symbiotic relationship between online, on mobile, and on air. If you have the right packages, there's no two ways about it. You will stand out from the mediocrity that sometimes tends to rear its ugly head on airwaves in spot brackets. So certainly the 30-second spot has its place, and we're seeing that more and more advertisers are tending to shy away from possibly the big non-traditional revenue aspects. You know, the NTR campaigns that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years, when clients were looking at doing things differently. If you own a supermarket in downtown Pretoria and you have a special from a supplier who's got a special on tea bags, take out the spot, hit the frequency, and you will sell out. And that's what most of our clients tell us.